The 2022 Ford Maverick. Well, we're going to talk about it tonight. I've got Marie here with us as kind of a co-host, but really she's more here to ask the questions that she has and that you all have and have been asking in the comments section. Now, she's also here because for the last 2 weeks, I've also been sick. I have some brain fog, so she's here to make sure that, your host, Johnny, from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, stays on topic and doesn't, take too much time to get the info out. So I will get the info out to you all about microchip shortages on the Ford Maverick. We're also going to be talking about just general production numbers across a few models. We're going to be looking at what the production numbers tell us, what evidence and pretty much proof they're offering us. And it's also, those numbers are going to support what Tim Bartz from Long MacArthur. If you haven't subscribed to him, make sure you do. He's fantastic, a huge help to the community, works extremely hard. Now, I was going to try to bring out this information and these numbers to you on Wednesday, but I couldn't because I've had to do all sorts of overtime at work because people are sick. And mind you, I'm sick. I have been sick and I'm still sick, but a little less so because I've been I've tested negative 4 times. I've had a nosebleed every single time. I don't have as much voice, so I'm sorry for that, but Marie's here to ask the important questions. So why don't we just, before breaking down the numbers, let's make sure she asks the first question that I think is probably the most important question to pretty much everyone here.
Yes, it's a question that many person are asking. So, John, when will I get my Maverick?
That's a really good question, and it's a question that I feel for everyone in the community because Marie's waiting on her Maverick. And when did you order that?
On July.
Yeah, so I put that order in around July 17th. And, some of you, it hurts because some of you have an older vehicle that you have to repair. I know all about that. I bought her an Escape, and I put in $800 into her Escape to repair it. And then,
Wasn't sure you will work. You will start in the cold.
Yeah, so
each morning. So.
And I wanted her to have a safe vehicle in case we have an accident. So now she's running my first Bronco, which is now her Bronco. So Ford, it's costing me a lot. So if ever Ford, you want to send me Ford points, Ford Pass points, that would be great. But at least I got them with the purchase of my second Bronco. But speaking of having 2 Broncos in the family, Maria at the end is going to ask the question of, how do I end up with 2 Broncos? Where do I get my sources from? What's going on? Because I'll explain all that because I've learned over time to not just look at what my brand manager talks about. I try to actually have numbers. So let's just jump right into that and really answer your question. The real question is later than expected, and the reason it's later than expected, Marie, is because you have the Luxe package. Mm-hmm. And what the Luxe package does, I've been suspecting this actually turned out to be one of my strong speculations, which means I have a whole lot of evidence, but not enough evidence to call it an absolute proof. But now with adding Tim Bartz' brand manager saying, confirming it, I can say that I've seen your order. So I do watch orders. So I've blocked out the confidential information on that. So I've been watching Maverick orders and watching not just hers, but other Maverick orders get passed by much later dates. Vehicles that were ordered 2 months later, 2.5 months later than her July 17th have been passed just because they don't have Luxe package. And actually, I've been noticing that really anything with added microchips has also been not as bad as the Luxe package, but now with Tim Bartz' brand manager saying Copilot 360, I had noticed some Copilot 360 packages that were just sitting there and getting passed. But when you're just looking at one dealer's orders, you can't present this as proof, and it's impossible for one dealer to even get the numbers really of a whole bunch of other dealers, let alone one other dealer. So simply put, your Luxe package is slowing you down. Thankfully, on top of that, you didn't also add Copilot 360, which is actually standard with the Lariat, but Marie's is an XLT build. And now, I'd even suspect, you're not the only order I'm watching. I'm also watching Tristan's order, which is a Maverick EcoBoost all-wheel drive that I'm going to get to drive when it comes in 2 weeks. So you'll get to all see that on the channel. I'm going to test drive that out in the wild, in the snow. And he has the 4K. So I'm even wondering if 4K package, he's a very early, basically first week June order. And he's been passed by a whole bunch of Mavericks that have come in. And all he has is spray and bed liner, which I've seen mid-September orders get built and delivered. That was actually a hybrid delivered the 23rd of December. That was a straight XLT with spray and bed liner. And the only thing he has different with his EcoBoost all-wheel drive, obviously it's not a hybrid, but he doesn't have the spray and bed liner, but he does have 4K tow, which 4K towing would require and does require more microchips. Obviously, it has the technology for sway control on the trailer. It's got the brake controller. So, and the 7-pin connector. So that requires more microchips. And I highly suspect, and I think I've seen enough of them to say, basically it's proof, 4K towing can potentially slow you down. Other builds might get picked because, well, the numbers to the Maverick, the production numbers coming up ahead, which I've got and I'm going to talk about right now, they do show that there's going to be less Mavericks built every month going in, because for January they built 7,842 Mavericks. So that's a lot. And then by March, if my recollection is correct, I don't have it noted, but my recollection tells me that in March they're building 7,000 Mavericks. But then in April, and I do have this written down, this is definitely fact, the plan is 6,500 Mavericks. And then in May, it's 6,000 Mavericks. That is the complete opposite of how production of a model would normally work. Normally, Marie, how it would work is that as months progress, more and more models get built, because really the first few months you build less models so that you can discover problems and correct them. And the ones that are sitting in the parking lot or in clients' hands, you don't have to do recalls, and you don't have, if they're sitting in people's hands, well, you have to do recalls. And if they're still in the parking lot at the factory, you're doing what I call pre-calls. And that hurts, and you definitely don't want to do it. If you build 12,000 in the first month, you might have 12,000 vehicles to correct. Mm-hmm. And we saw it with the spray and bed liner on EcoBoost models. There's pretty much confirmed rumors that there is issues with the gas tank. When they were drilling, some gas tanks got punctured, but fortunately when they are empty. So more about these numbers. More about these numbers. It's a pretty big deal. Every month that we can see that we've been given by Ford, there's going to be less made. And that's the opposite of what normally occurs. Normally, once everything gets worked out, all the bugs in the machines, and you make sure that everything going into that vehicle is a-okay, hunky-dory, you start printing them out at full speed. And actually, speaking of printing them out at full speed, a lot of people have asked, and you haven't asked me yet, but a lot of people have asked, why doesn't Ford open a second Maverick factory? Well, the reason's simple. The factory they are currently using can make a whole lot more Mavericks. It can make about 300,000 units, that's Bronco Sport and Mavericks, per year. This is a factory I trust because it's been running since 1986. It made the Fusion, which was extremely well built. So Marie, let me at least confirm, you don't have to worry about the quality of your Maverick. It's made in Mexico, but that factory knows what they're doing, and Ford actually named it their best assembly plant for 2021.
Wow. Because
the Bronco Sport, which is the same platform as the Maverick, is actually a best SUV. It's named part of Consumer Reports' best SUV list. So it made it on the list as a first year model. It has considerably very few recalls or issues. So that plant's doing it well. You can expect your Maverick, when you do get it, to be top notch.
That's a good good news. Even if I don't have it yet, but it's a good news.
Now, that gave me a chance to clear my throat. I want to wish you all a very happy Friday. I hope you guys all have a very happy weekend, filled with fun and family. And, well, after the week I had, I need a bit of adult juice to feel a little bit better.
You will fall asleep in an hour.
Yeah, that probably will happen if we're watching TV on the couch, but likely actually be editing.
Have a big week.
Yeah, I'll probably be editing this video so that we can get it out tonight so that Friday comment actually fits. So what's going on with production numbers? Well, let's just quickly recap. They're going down as months progress, and this is very, very significant. First of all, Jim Farley himself said that microchips would need to be, put to high profit models. AKA, that certainly means the F-150. Now, for the Maverick, we see that they are getting less microchips. And actually, the sheet here that I have is there's also even microchip shortages for the F-150. I've said it in videos before. I think Ford has done an amazing job through everything that's going on to nonetheless come out with really nicely sized truck at an incredible price. This thing is less expensive. If you count inflation into all of this, it's less expensive than a Model T. So that's amazing. And it's less expensive than a Honda Civic. And if you get the hybrid, it's more fuel efficient. So great truck. Really glad that Ford has done their best, but I think that they've probably sold about 85,000. And that's what a lot of people are throwing out as a number. And let's say because that's not anything Ford has confirmed that I could find. And if they did sell 85,000, let's say there's 85,000 in the system. Here's the breakdown of the numbers, which is going to tell a whole lot about what's going on. And it's going to actually let you know that some Mavericks aren't going to get built this year. So why aren't some going to get built this year? Here it is. We've got, let's say, 85,000. Well, last year in 2021, they built 33,723 as of February 1st. That's because in 2021, they built 25,881. So I'm going to try to post those numbers without covering Marie's face. So hopefully they fit on the side over here. That wouldn't be very nice. If anything, they should cover my face.
Why don't you cover your face?
You have a very nice face, whereas myself, not so much. But we'll put it on this side for once, because if you follow the channel, and if you do follow the channel but haven't subscribed yet, please do hit like and subscribe. Hitting that like button gets these videos out. Hitting subscribe makes sure you don't miss any of this, craziness. But I always put info on the right side. Well, now we're going to put it on the left side. And if it covers my face, so be it. But the numbers in 2021, they built 25,881 Mavericks. And what's wild is the first month of production, they built about 200. Then they were building about 600. Then they're up to 1,000. And then once the wheels started turning near the end of the year, they were building about last month in December, it was 7,000 something. January, to be precise, 7,842. But you can see those numbers hopefully off to the side if I get the editing done correctly. Now the total number is 33,723. Now here's the problem. If we are wishful and hope that they start getting microchips after the month of May, which Ford has not given numbers for June or July yet. They can't project that far or aren't sharing that info, but most likely it's too difficult to project that far how many microchips you can get. But if they continue to get less, we're going to be in more trouble. But if they continue to get, let's say, 6,000, the number they're getting for the month of May. So June, July, August, let's say we're really lucky and numbers don't go down, but they unfortunately don't go up. That means by the end of the year, there's going to be roughly 2,000 unbuildable Mavericks, or they're buildable, but they're sitting in the parking lot without microchips. And that's if they produce 6,000, an average of 6,250. So what actually might happen is we're probably going to have anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 Mavericks carry over. And that's if 85,000 were ordered. It could be more. So definitely we're going to be in the thousands of Mavericks getting carried over. Whose Mavericks are those going to be? Not Marie's. And that's not because I have, some special relationship with Ford. That has nothing to do with anything. It's not going to be Marie's because she's a July 17th order. So that's the good news. Finally, I've talked for quite a while. Haven't let you talk, but at least I'm giving you good news. So you're an early build. And people in her boat, for the community here, if you're a September or an October order, you probably shouldn't have very much to worry about. Now, if you're a hybrid order in the end of October to the cutoff date, November 15th, well, I'd say that's probably the danger zone, looking at approximately how many I think are not going to be buildable versus the number of orders. And it's very good and responsible of Ford. Probably when they start to get indications that they might get less microchips, they cut off sales, which that can, that actually hurts them, because letting dealerships just say anything to clients and say, oh yeah, you'll have it in 2 months. Well, they pick up your $500 or $1,000 deposit, and you're almost certainly going to wait for that Maverick to show up. Even if your dealer says 2-3 months to get your money, if it shows up a year later,
You never know.
we never know. Ford still gets the sale, but they don't want that. They don't want your dealer to be able to say anything. They've specifically said November 15th, hybrids are sold out, and that's good on them. And now, January 27th, they've said EcoBoosts are sold out. So if you're an EcoBoost and you're in the last, a month before that, I'd say there's chances you're going to be a carryover. Also, models that require more microchips, also possible carryover. But you're early enough. I'm thinking that the more complex models, maybe it's a little bit more than a month before those cutoff dates. But who are those models? Well, Lux Package, Copilot, and this year I did make one mistake. I suggested you don't get the moonroof, and actually suggested that to a whole lot of people. And that was based on, I saw what was going on for microchips with the F150, that some vehicles were coming in 3-4 months later, F150s, because they're sitting in a parking lot without microchips. And I know a moonroof requires extra microchips. And I also know that back in January, the Bronco Sport dealers were sent a memo saying, avoid the moonroof if your client wants to get it sooner. Try to avoid the moonroof, because that will mean that they're likely going to get it later. To the point where Ford actually changed the order guide and actually put limitations on how many moonroofs. They told us straight out in the order guide that it usually played around 15 or 20%. But on the Bronco Sport, the moonroof was much more popular. So this didn't actually turn out to be an issue, because only about 5% of people want a moonroof. So it didn't turn out to be an issue. I'd love it if someone could confirm, really. It looks like I haven't seen orders be delayed by moonroofs. So if you're a moonroof person, order holder, don't worry. But if you have 4K, you should worry somewhat if you're near those cutoff dates. And if you have a Lux package, well, it's going to be a long haul, but as long as you're not, if you're more than a month out from those cutoff dates, you should be okay.
So it's always when you have more electronical things that you could have delays because of the microchip.
That is a really good way of summarizing it. And I've got, my buddy Tristan, I've also been watching his order, and I've been wanting to talk about this. I have noticed on different orders that Copilot were getting slowed down a little. I've been talking about the Lux package getting slowed down all the way back to about mid to end of September, because I noticed much older orders, orders that were 2 months later than Marie's, as well as others getting passed in front. And I said, hey, I highly suspected that something was going down. There was something in that Lux package holding it back. It turns out, could not make it. It turns out,
it's logic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They're microchips, and if Ford can, let's say, build 3 Mavericks or 1 Maverick that's more complex, requiring more microchips, well, people at the factory, we all like to work. We all like to have a job and money coming in. Well, the factory's got to stay productive. It's got to work. It can't close down for, a week or 2 at a time. So they're using up the microchips they can on models that have them. And this doesn't mean that you're never going to get your Maverick just because it has a Lux package. It just means they're going to build it. They're going to try to pass, while production numbers have been high for January. And a good news, in March, they are building a whole lot of hybrids. And yours is a hybrid, so
we got a chance there.
Actually, I'd say March has passed, but there'll also be a lot for us. But I'm hoping that maybe by May that we'll start our mid-July order will actually get produced.
Perfect. And John, can you tell me who gets what, when, and what's about the 3-month delay?
That's a good question. The numbers that I've talked about saying that, there's going to be several thousand Mavericks that aren't produced, and those are probably going to be the ones that are within a month of those cutoff dates. Well, that has everything to do with the 3-month delay. Some users I've had time to comment, and I hope I've commented to everyone that asked me why did mine get delayed by a month. This week I officially wrote in the comments section to several people, this has a very small chance of being a glitch and a very big chance of being an actual delay, and that's why I printed this off 03/02/2020. Well, I printed this off, I guess it's the 3rd of February, to show this right here. It says microchip at plant on hold. So I was highly suspecting that a 3-month delay, I've seen it on the Bronco, I've seen it with F150s, and in F150s back this spring often would get, the ETA would be pushed back by 3 months. So this is really important if you're following the track your vehicle, Ford track your vehicle. That's what you put in Google, and I have a whole video talking about how to track your vehicle. But if you've been tracking your vehicle, if you go watch my video and learn how to track your vehicle, and you do get pushed around by a week or 2, that's fine. That's nothing to worry about if you're bouncing around. And I've talked about this in videos before. My Broncos both got pushed around. I've seen all sorts of other orders get pushed back 2 weeks, further 2 weeks, then come back 1 week, pushed back 1 week, and then all out of the blue, it ends up getting built close to the original date. I've seen a lot of that. Don't worry about that. But if you do get pushed back by 3 weeks, that's real. That's a microchip issue. The system back on F-150s often would not actually write in the little box, the ETA disposition box, often wouldn't write microchip at plant on hold, but occasionally they would. Well, I learned that if something got pushed back by 3 months, or if it was just sitting in the system saying produced, but not switching over to in transit or transport with a rail car number, I learned with time, hey, this is one that, let's not call people up and say, gee whiz, it's been produced. You should be getting this real soon, because I knew it was probably going to sit there anywhere from 1 to 3 months. And I did see that on a whole lot of F-150s, and that's, those were the F-150s that took a total of 7 months, for example, to 7-8 months to show up. Now, some did show up a whole lot quicker, but they didn't have any of those issues. So who's getting what and when? Well, we've talked a whole lot about, hybrids that are complex with Lux. You're getting it quite a bit later than you should be, because right now we're delivering a whole lot of vehicles from September. My friend Tristan, all he has is a 4K tow package. And I've seen another vehicle with Line X. I've seen a bunch of vehicles with Line X get pushed way ahead of him. 3 months, because he's a June and I'm seeing September. A lot of Septembers pass. He's finally gotten built, and this should show up in 2 weeks. And on the channel, I'm going to do a nice road test. Who knows, maybe you'll even come along for the ride. But Tristan, who works at the dealership, has told me that I can take his vehicle out. He manages actually the whole vehicle preparation team. Great guy. We're going to drive his EcoBoost all-wheel drive, or at least I definitely will. But he has a 4K, and he was day one. Yeah, I think he told me, he said he's pretty sure he was day 1 or day 2 from when the order banks and reservations opened up. He got his order in. He has 4K. It requires more microchips, and he's been passed by people who are 3 months later than him. But finally, he's going to get his. So basically, if you've got a complex build, you're probably going to get yours later. Line X looks like it hurts somewhat, but not nearly as bad, because a hybrid order that was ordered the 10th of September, that's the exact date. I looked back into it this week. which is just basically 2 months later than yours. It got built and it was a hybrid XLT with nothing else other than a spray and bed liner. My friend Tristan, he has a spray and bed liner and 4K, and it was really obviously the 4K that held him back and landed him a date that ends up being that other hybrid with spray and bed liner was delivered December 23rd, and he's going to be getting his right around February 20th. So I've got brain fog. That's 2 months, right? This cold or whatever I've got is kicking me in the pants, and all the extra hours from people not being there because they have like the legitimate sickness, and I've got the illegitimate sickness because I don't test positive. So as much brain fog as I have, I do the extra hours at work and show up every day. So let's carry right along and let you ask the next question.
Yes, so next question, John, let's talk about snow mountain Broncos.
Yeah, that's a question. She saw a photo go by on Facebook and she's like, whoa, what's going on? There's snow-covered Broncos in a parking lot. And this actually ties in perfectly with everything we just talked about, so I'm not going to repeat it, but microchips, because they're making about three. Yeah, again, this isn't a hardtop thing. I've seen hardtops come into the dealership that look amazing. I haven't found an issue on all of them, and I'm meticulous. And I haven't found issues on them. They're good now, the hard tops. And I believe, it's been actually someone that works over at the Webasto factory. Nope, sorry, it was Karen on customer service that confirmed that they're making 300 hard tops a day. So she must be getting that number from somewhere. And actually, the number of hard tops that started to come into the dealership actually have been quite high. So I'm definitely thinking that hardtop issues are pretty much worked out. Now they're just going to be playing catch up. So they've got to catch up to all those people waiting and who have been waiting for a year and a half because they had a hardtop. Well, we're going to start seeing finally some happy campers. And you know what? That works. That expression works because with the hardtop, you can camp on the roof. And the soft top, well, it's a little more complicated.
Yeah, that's true. At the beginning, you wanted the hardtop to do camping. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Now, if you're waiting on your Bronco and you're following the tracking system and it doesn't say on hold microchip and it's been produced and 1 week goes by. Okay, nothing confirmed here. That's light speculation. 2 weeks go by. Okay, now you can start probably figuring that you're missing a microchip, or someone accidentally damaged something on your Bronco, or it wasn't painted right. Like one of our Broncos actually, and it's not a big deal, but the hood has two tiny little extra paint spots that Ford probably figured either it wasn't found or Ford figured that we'd just, the dealer would wet sand it off. But I didn't want them to wet sand it off.
We don't see that.
Yeah,
we don't see it that much, so
we don't see it.
You finally said, oh no, I don't want to. Can I say that? Do something to my paint. Yeah, I don't my original paint, so I will leave it there. It will be better.
And actually, the dealer even offered to repaint the whole hood. They said, well, look, here are two options. We can wet sand it. And I said, well, I'm not comfortable with that because you never know what the clear coat's going to look like after. And then they said, well, we can just repaint the whole hood for you. And I was like, well, that's very generous of you to offer, but really, I don't really see the spots unless I'm really looking for them. So I'm going to get stone chips anyways. I wrapped it, and once I put my clear wrap over it, I was right. Now I don't see them. So thank you, clear wrap, and I'm protected against stone chips. So that has actually been quite a nice surprise. But if you do get to 3 weeks and your vehicle's been produced and it's not moved, there is an extremely small chance that the system just isn't getting updated on time. But as less and less people are working from home and they're more back in in their offices, I'd say at this point it's much more likely that it's on hold waiting for a microchip, and that can take 1 month, it can take 3 months. Let's hope that it's mostly 1 month. Now, if you have a Maverick that's been pushed back by 3 months, I actually noticed this with F150s, and I also noticed it with Broncos. It's cool knowing that there are good chances. Ford likes to put a date further out, hoping that they will find a solution beforehand and actually get it to you sooner. So, and actually that was part of my whole strong speculation with the hybrids. Hybrids, I was saying all of end of October, all of November, and basically beginning of December, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen. What was I saying? I was saying that we would see hybrid Mavericks for Christmas because it would be fantastic publicity, that it was the right idea in regards to marketing, and because there's so much negative talk going around about the whole, like, well, EPA numbers. Why did the EPA numbers take so long? What's actually going on? I speculated that maybe there weren't quite enough quality batteries coming in, and that they were, verifying batteries to make sure that when they do send the Maverick out, it's, A-okay, because I actually did see that with the Escape plug-in. So it turned out that they did get Mavericks. Our local dealer got one December 23rd, the one that passed her hybrid order, even though it was 2 months older. But that's that. You all know why that happened. We just finished talking about that. So now let's just, with a little pain in our hearts, move on to, sorry to always be dropping you bad news, but let's move on to the next subject.
And now, I'm sure many people are asking that question in their mind. If they didn't order a Maverick yet, if, for example, I want to order one now, but I see, there's so much delay, the people already put comments and didn't receive their VIN number, or they didn't receive the Maverick at all. So I guess many people will understand that they cannot do any other orders. So what about that?
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, some people do have the impression that, hey, it's sold out. There's these delays. 2 negative things. Obviously, I'm not going to order mine. And if, you didn't have me around, you probably wouldn't have ordered yours. So that's why I kind of chuckled on the side. I'm not sure.
You probably won't change car that much if you have one. You around.
You definitely would not change vehicles as often.
I'm tired of that.
Yeah, Marie gets her vehicle changed every 6 months, and she's like, "No, I want to keep my current one." I'm like, "No, there's something new. Look at this." So this summer in the pool while we're on vacation, I convinced her, in between making a ton of videos during my vacation time, I convinced her to get a Maverick. And had I not pushed her, you would be looking probably at a Maverick now, naturally, because even with pushing you, and I had already been pushing you since early June, finally on about the 16th of July, you're like, you know what? I think I could maybe get a Maverick. I think this could be cool. Tell me more about it. But had I not pushed, now she'd be looking at the Maverick thinking it's a disaster. It is, what kind of show could describe this? It's a certain type of show going on, and some people blame Ford, and it's not Ford. It's a global issue. There's, I've talked about this in so many videos, but there's missing vinyl. There's shortages on spray-in bed liner material, plastics.
Yeah, so maybe people
microchips.
Will think they cannot do a command.
Yeah, but now's the time. Simply put. Yeah? Yes. Wow. Now's the time to order and not order a Maverick. Let me explain. Not order a Maverick because you can't actually order one that your order won't get accepted by the factory. But it's totally the time to order a Maverick from your dealer, because a good, responsible dealer is going to put your order sheet in a binder. So the binder, the order is there. Now, to also make sure that a sneaky salesman doesn't say, hey, mine down here, I'm going to put it up top. They're also going to make sure that they print off offers that are time-stamped on those offers. And also, in case the person who's punching them in, once the order banks do open, once the factory says, okay, put them all in, while dealers are going to be punching in, some dealers will be punching 200-300 orders in the same day. Some, smaller dealers will be punching in maybe 30 or 40.
Better now than later.
Better now than later, because you want to be at the top of that list. So a lot of my recent videos have been about that. So I'm not going to talk at length about this, but simply put, take at least enough time to find a good dealer. Ask them, will you sell me the vehicle, the Maverick, or any vehicle, no matter what brand, in case there's someone from another brand that's watching this, you never know. But solid advice, one of your first questions should be, if I do business here, will you sell me MSRP And will you sign an offer promising MSRP? Now, here's the complicated thing in all of this. You can, at Ford, absolutely expect to get MSRP when your vehicle comes in if the vehicle hasn't been declared sold out. So let's say you ordered back a hybrid before November 15th, or you ordered an EcoBoost before January 27th. The interest rate that month and the MSRP that month, the dealership can absolutely claim that with Ford. They have to manually in the system put the price, the MSRP price, back to what it was. That can be done, but by hand, by typing. But once that's done, then it looks like they're going to lose a bit of money. But they just have to they have to go into a claim system. I think in Canada it's called Vincent Plus. But anyways, I don't do the claims. There's people at the dealership that work to do that. They're very appreciated people, and they're good people that make sure that those claims do get made. But once a vehicle does get sold out, what this means, we're transferring into 2023, meaning when they open up those order banks. And right now I do have the date for that. I'm looking down because I'm looking through a whole lot of notes. Sorry about this, but it's August. It's sometime in August. So it's August 16th. That's the plan for order banks to be open. Now I've seen it so many times since this nonsense of the last few years, but I've seen it be, sometimes earlier and mostly later. Things often get pushed back, but current plan is August 16th. A dealer that has 40 or a dealer that has 400, they're going to punch them all in. Now, responsible dealers will have them in a binder. They're also going to have them written down in an Excel sheet that, tricky salesmen don't have access to try to pass theirs in front of someone else's. But a good dealer, we've talked about MSRP. A good dealer is also going to have an Excel sheet to track whose goes where. Does that make sense, or is that brain fog? Whose goes where? Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I'm not that good in English. Don't ask me that.
Fair. Well, they're going to timestamp basically and put everyone in order into a computer system and a binder so that there's no way they can get this mess mixed up. And they're going to punch everyone in at the same time. So if you have proof based on what people are saying online that you're the dealer you're thinking of buying from has been telling people that they'll move them ahead of the list for the Ford F150 Lightning if they put $5,000, $10,000 or $20,000 off, well, that probably means you should look for a different dealer because they might also do that for, who's in line with the Maverick. And Ford is working really hard to keep dealers on the straight and narrow. Remember, capitalism, different businesses, there's only so much power you can exercise over a different business. But what's really cool, and you don't have to worry about people passing your order unfairly.
Again?
Well, that's just because of constraints, and it's not about being unfair. But Ford, for dealerships that are creating fake clients, well, they track how many people, what percentage of people actually take possession of the vehicle that they ordered. And if you fall below too low of a percentage, guess what? You're going to get your allocations reduced, meaning where do those allocations go? Well, if they're just incapable of making as many vehicles as planned, well, that's where they're going to go. But if the same number of vehicles get built as planned and you're now giving less to dealers that cheated, what's cool is dealers that didn't cheat get more vehicles. It's like Christmas time in March. So you can end up getting a whole lot of F-150s built for you in the month of March because you've been, good and A-okay all along and not making up fake clients. And
that's fair.
That's fair.
I really love that system.
I love that system too. And in Canada, actually, what's really neat is we don't have to use a secondary system where we punch in and, kind of send proof of driver's license and deposit. It's more based on if you get caught, you'll be verified, but we don't have to punch everything into a secondary system, ROVP system. Tim Bartz talks a lot about this, and I keep looking into it and be like, hey, Marie's, is it not getting produced because it didn't get put into the ROVP system? And I'm ROVP, and what I've been told is, well, we don't punch things into the ROVP system. That's not something that I actually physically do myself. So, I had to ask questions and I had to make sure. So if you're a Canadian watcher and your dealer, let's say, didn't take a deposit, that doesn't mean you're going to get your Maverick or your whatever Ford model that you love much later, because it's only something that might be required if that dealer actually gets gets their books checked. So moving right along to the next question.
Yes. So what about the F-150 Lightning? Or F-150 Lightning. John, what have you done? Did you really wrote or F-150 Lightning?
Yeah.
No. You told me that you didn't have you didn't put a comment on the F-150?
Yeah, sorry. Marie's reading notes that I wrote for her, and it appears that I forgot to mention that I had ordered, that I put a deposit down for an F-150 Lightning. Yeah, I forgot. I thought because I was talking a lot about it, that you're aware that obviously if I'm talking a lot about a model, I really want the model, and if I want something, I'll find a way to get it. So, I have put in...
Another one.
Yeah, another one. So I have put in an order for an F-150 Lightning. By the way, because we're getting we've had two Broncos, and we're going to be getting a Maverick. My local dealer,
enough, I guess, huh?
It's enough, and that's what the local dealer actually said. They said, John, you gotta, even if you time stamped, they asked me, would it be okay if you get your Lightning a little later to pass someone who hasn't gotten as many super hot models? And I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. On an emotional and logical level, you can only be blessed so much.
Keep cars for others.
You got to keep cars for others. So I won't get my Lightning, even though actually I thought I had a very early time, but actually I reserved mine. Sorry, this is news, I guess.
Really?
I'm sure you don't remember, but the night I got out of bed and went and played on my computer and I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot it's the Lightning reveal night, and I kind of disappeared for a while. Well, it's to go watch the reveal and obviously put in an order, but I thought, like the Bronco, you could only put in your order at the end of the reveal, and actually right at the beginning of the reveal, you could put in your, reservation is the correct term, but I actually started having problems with the system after I watched the video. So I finally got in at 11:32, figuring, hey, this is pretty early. I must be, in the top 3 on the list. My local dealer is getting 10, and I'm number 11. Well, I was number 12, but now I'm number 11 because someone else got kicked off. Well, they decided not to take possession or not to put in their order, turn a reservation into an order. And on top of it, someone else also did that. So I'm actually 10th. So which means I should be getting the last Lightning built for 2022. But if you haven't been called up by your dealer, don't worry. Very few people will be getting called up, because out of a list of about 110, 120, because I haven't counted it this week, but it probably must be up to about 120. It's only the first 10 that are going to get called to, be asked the important questions. What model do you want? Do you want the regular hitch? Do you want the max towing hitch? To work out all the details of what exactly you're going to get as your Lightning. So I've gracefully bowed out of the race, and instead of getting produced in what I'm calling the demo year, because even Ford themselves, the brand manager, was like, consider 2022 Lightnings as a demo year, but a demo that people actually get to own, because very few are going to get built, but production is going to really increase in the production year 2, which is 2023 models, which are going to start pretty early. In 2022, earlier than usual, not pretty early compared to Asian manufacturers that sometimes, pop them out in, March or April. They've got the next year model on. But for Ford, normally it's pretty much near the end of the year. And the Lightning is going to switch over to 2023 pretty early. So that usually means probably an early fall. And I do have Maverick. I'm confident and I'm certain ours isn't going to get pushed as a 2023 Maverick. Ours, yours, whatever, but
the other car that will.
But there is one thing that I'm sure of. Ford does plan on starting to build those in October, and I believe I have the date all the way at the very beginning. October 24th is the current plan for when the factory is going to start building 2023s, probably roughly a week earlier. it's going to shut down, and they're going to, switch machines out, put in new parts. Basically, it's like a spring cleaning, and with a bit of window changing on the house. So you change certain machines, you modify certain machines, you reprogram other things, and the factory closes down for a short little bit. Nothing gets produced, and then the 2023s start getting built, and that's supposed to be October 24th. But that's not going to be us. That's probably going to be people who have more complex builds, such as the Lux package. And if you have, let's say, Lux package 4K towing and spray in bed liner, on the XLT, right now you shouldn't have spray in bed liner. You should have the drop in bed liner, which is plastic. Spray in bed liner is the one you shoot. I was going to bring in my little sample, but I don't have it, a piece of metal that has been sprayed. I'll bring that in for one of the future videos.
It's built in the box. It's not an ad.
Yeah,
we can say that like that.
Spray in bed liner, sprayed on the box. Drop in is the plastic. And something on the American website, one of the commenters asked this question. It's a really great question, and thankfully I use both the Canadian website, the order guide, Canada and US, and the American build and price website before I give answers. So what I found out is there's a drop-in bed liner and a hard drop-in bed liner. Don't worry about this. This is kind of a mistake on the American website, and I'll tell you why. On the Canadian website, this does not happen. You have spray in and hard drop in. Hard drop in plastic, spray in, sprayed. You're probably decent chances you're going to get a delay. You will get your Maverick, but later if you have spray in, because globally there have been shortages all throughout 2021. Now on the American website versus the Canadian website, hard drop in versus just the drop in. The less expensive one is your hard drop-in, which is plastic, and the more expensive one is the spray. And how you can tell is when you click on details, it's actually going to tell you that one is not available. One is not available on the XLT, and the other one is not available on the Lariat. And that's because XLT's now obligatory. It's plastic, and Lariats, if you take the Lux package, obligatory. It is spray-in.
Oh.
And can you change your order? Currently, if you want any of the things I've mentioned, whether Copilot, maybe even 4K, but probably if you want 4K, you're willing to wait a little longer because that is pretty handy. But what we've mentioned in regards to microchip shortages, as well as the spray-in liner, should you remove it? Well, the problem is if you remove, for example, Lux package, whether it's Lariat or XLT, you're not going to be able to put it back on your order. So make sure if you do take it off, you are absolutely certain, because it's not going back on. The system will let you take it away, but it won't let you put it back on because there's an absolute shortage of that.
That's a dangerous move.
Well said, Cherie. That is a very dangerous move.
And for the final question, I know that you had that question on your channel this morning. You read that to me. So people wants to know where you get your sources.
Okay, yeah, that's a very fair question. I think it was Judy in Arizona that asked, so thank you very much. I love answering questions because I really like helping. It's kind of gives me my drive. I'm answering questions at 11 at night in bed with the lights off, and we wake up, my alarm goes off 15-20 minutes earlier than hers, so I can answer more questions in the comment section. Great question.
Spending more time with you than with me, huh?
Sometimes, yes, but I'm working on that. So, so here's the thing. I try to get it from everywhere. And I have primary sources. For example, when I was talking about the soft top issue, I think I mentioned this earlier in the video. I had my GM saying, and actually even it came in through, if I recall, a memo, but this was really early on for the Bronco. This was like month of March or April. Get this memo saying, hey, soft tops, looks like they're going to be an issue. We won't have enough. Try to get clients on hard tops. Gets mentioned in a meeting. Then I get a bit of conflicting info. So I asked the brand manager, I'm like, hey, it looks like the hard top's going to be an issue. So is the soft top? Because right now I have a hard top, but should I switch to the soft top? And he's like, well, no, the latest info I have is that the soft top still has the potential to be an issue, and to speed things up, pull clients towards the hard top. And then of course, about roughly 4 weeks later, everything changed, and Ford was like, yeah, Bronco Nation put it out, and Bronco Nation, Ford, whatever, Ford. So it was mentioned that, okay, take a soft top, move things forward. And already for 3 weeks, I had other intel. So numbers that, I like to follow Ford Authority. I follow, Maverick Truck Club. I follow a lot of forums. I'm reading information from there. I also try to read in between the lines in regards to statements made by high ups at Ford. I also talk to employees directly at Ford. So and it's a mix between, first sources, second sources, and anything I can get my hands on. But then I try to run numbers on everything, because what I learned with the soft top issue was the soft top, had I actually switched to the soft top 3 weeks earlier when I was very confident, I highly suspected the hard top would be an issue, and Ford had not announced it yet. Well, had I made that switch, I would have got our Bronco, for our summer holidays. We would have been driving top down, and life would have been just a little bit better. And it wasn't, because, well, I was working with just one source. It was a primary source. Sometimes primary sources, they too need to be fed intel. And so now I don't take anything for face value. That's why for this video, I ran the production numbers, and I tried to, do some future, speculation. And I like to get numbers as well as primary sources to make sure everything coincides. Everything, just fits together perfectly. So, my brother's been working at Ford for, almost 30 years. And I do have, I talk to Ford employees. I could say I have a special connection with Ford, but I don't want to get too much.
He's always there to order a car, so you always speak to them.
We can say basically I'm there almost every day. So I won't get into more detail than that, but to answer the question properly, my sources, they're from all over, and I do try to balance different sources, because you can't, in my opinion, you can't just purely trust one source. You got to sort of source check different sources against each other. I think even with the brain fog, that's the best way that I can answer it.
That's good.
And with all that, that's to explain, that's kind of how we got 2 Broncos. We got one Bronco much earlier than we should have, because we took off our hard top. We had a 2-door hard top, and I think it was in May that I was like, ooh, I'm worried about this 2-door hardtop situation. So I switched to a 4-door hardtop. And
soft top.
No, four-door hardtop. And I asked the brand manager, I'm like, hey, is soft top still supposed to be an issue? Because I have contrary, and I told him I highly suspect. So I know a lot of you some of you get upset when I use the term highly suspect. That means I have, I wouldn't call it proof, but I have evidence. I have indicators. So my indicators were pointing to the fact that the hard tops would be an issue. And I was told, well, no, keep your hard top, get clients towards the hard top, and the soft top looks like it's going to be an issue. But in the end, that wasn't anyone's fault. Soft tops ended up, being produced fantastically. And I say fantastically, but here's some backstory. Our first soft top doesn't have nearly as much sound deadening qualities. There's a wave in the back plastic, it flaps around, and our first Bronco is not an issue, but I wouldn't call it quiet. It's a little loud. We can still talk, but you put the radio to 8 or 10 and you don't hear it anymore.
But at the beginning we didn't mind that much. It's because now that you have the other one, we see a little bit of a difference, but
you say a little now, but when we're inside it, you go, why? You complain that you're driving the older Bronco with the noisier top, and how much you'd like to be driving the other one, which is quieter.
I'm not complaining. I'm just like you said, I see evidence, so I'm like, Oh, when I'm at the stop and a car passed next to me, I'm like, oh, did I leave the window open? I hear that noise a lot, and I'm like, no, okay, no, it's because of the top.
So, and now I'm actually starting to lose my voice.
Don't die.
But yeah, I won't die. So this is why. This is why I suspect things, and it turned out, it was nobody's fault. And the soft top did come in adequate numbers to the factory, so the factory was able to produce and pump out Broncos with soft tops. So we got our first one much sooner. Now, who knows, the original soft top, was it worse, or were they thinking, hey, are we not going to release this? All we know is our second Bronco is a whole lot quieter, but it is a soft top with high package, which on the website and in the order guide it says added sound deadening. The only way you can really tell is under the hood.
How, but they
yeah, we're gonna buy a scale. We don't own a scale in the house, and no one here gets weighed. But we need to. We're gonna buy a scale, and we're gonna weigh the tops when there isn't snow. And that, speaking of tops and no snow, I'm sorry, Dave from All Terrain Nation, we have wanted to accept your top-down challenge, but we've been waiting for a snowstorm and not minus 26, because it has been so cold out here that
since 3 weeks, it was minus 20, 25 sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes minus 28. That's without the wind chill. So you go outside, and if you're out there with, forget the wind that comes in through the top. If you're just out there, letting the dogs out, Winston out for a pee, and you're out there for more than a few minutes, you start to get a little bit of almost frostbite. If you tear in the eye and that tear hits your skin, you're getting frostbite pretty quick. So that's that. That's where we get our sources. Our two Broncos, well, I use all sorts of intel to try to get the Broncos faster. We did keep the hitch on the Bronco. We kept the 2.7 liter, but I highly suspected it was really a top issue. Now it is being confirmed by Ford. If you are a Bronco order holder, taking off your hitch should help move it forward. And I do believe that. It makes sense because it's microchips, and hey, guess what? This ties all the way back into what we talked about at the beginning of the video, which is, this is news. No one else is talking about this. I expect 4K towing with its added 7-pin connector and trailer sway control, keeps your trailer stabilized, going in a straight line with the truck. That requires more sensors. They're telling you if you remove your hitch from your Bronco, you'll get your Bronco sooner. That's the type of multiple sources that I use to put together to really analyze and come to highly probable, because it's only proof once you actually have it sitting in your yard. So with one Bronco, yeah, we have it actually sitting in our yard and it's proof. But microchips were not much of an issue this summer, and they weren't even this fall. We saw, numbers for Maverick production in December, 7,000 some odd. January, I had at the beginning of the video about 7,800 and something, of which only 6,500 or so were sold. So that, the missing, I think I had calculated out to about a missing 800. Those are probably ones that are being held back for microchip shortages. So there's probably about 800 of us who are going to wait, at most, hopefully 3 months, because Ford likes to throw out a much further date and then do everything they possibly can to get it sooner. But those are probably the 800. There's probably 800 people who are going to get their Maverick later because of microchip shortages. So I'm also going to add not just Copilot 360, but I'm pretty confident, I highly suspect that 4K towing means you're getting your your Maverick a little later. And if you have a Bronco, remove it from your Bronco, because you can always add it after the fact. The Bronco's plenty strong to tow 3,500 pounds, and I'll be talking about that, maybe with Marie's help, in the next Bronco video. So that concludes everything for tonight. Cheers to y'all. I wish you all a fantastic weekend. Now, if you liked Marie's presence, put it in the comments section. Show her some love. Say, great job, Marie, or get Johnny to have you on more of the shows.
I think you want to co-host.
Especially when I have brain fog. She's been good keeping me on track tonight. I wish you all a fantastic week. I wish you all more cars, meaning I hope you get your Mavericks or Broncos or Lightnings soon. So I wish you all more cars. and more power. And I do
And
hope...
a Maverick soon.
Yeah, and your Maverick soon, of course. Yeah, her Maverick soon, your Maverick soon. And of course, as always, if it's your thing, I do wish you, I hope you get to put the pedal to the metal. I know I did today in the snow with the Bronco. Maybe get you a bit of footage on that, but I have been having a ton of fun. How have you been having fun with the Bronco in the snow?
Yes. When I came back from work, I was trying it in the snow because we had pretty much snow today, and I hope tomorrow we'll play in the snow with the Broncos. What do you think about it?
I think that sounds good. I think that sounds real good. Now, did you
I
plow?
want to try it.
Did you plow through the 3 to 4 foot snowbank?
Not that much. I'm still a little bit shy because I don't want to break it. I want to be with you when I will do that, but.
Oh, you want to break it,
but
but you just want me to be there.
No. I turned a little bit in the snow and have fun when I came home.
Marie-Pierre, she's on KO2, BF Goodrich KO2 tires, and today was -12, meaning that rubber gets pretty hard when it gets pretty cold. So we'll be talking all about tires coming up soon in our future Bronco videos. So, we're going to keep you all informed about that. And it's going to help you know also all about tires for your Mavericks. Because you know what? A truck is a truck. I know a Bronco's not a truck, but boy, do I ever feel it's truck-like because it goes everywhere and anywhere. And we will take both Broncos off-roading soon, either back to the farm that we had back in fall, or maybe back to the sand pit if we can get in. But I suspect we'll be able to get in even if there is a good amount of snow. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.